Can you talk about how Coach Madison and Coach Hafley have been working off each other to design and install a scheme to this point?
Yeah, they've done a great job so far. I mean, they started off by, getting with Larry Johnson and talking about, some of the personnel that we had and build it from there. Greg with a ton going on with the front in terms of the run game and the front seven, and then Jeff, piecing it together on the back end with the coverages. So they've been doing a really good job, a lot of give and take there, and Jeff had to make a few adjustments, going from the NFL hashes to the college hashes and some of the other things, but they're flying around right now. I think the guys on defense feel like they're getting better, and I think most of you guys were at practice today, a lot of energy, and you guys are running around having fun. So.
My bad. Front row right, Austin. Ryan, just to get it out of the way, you said on Monday you were going to look at some numbers for the quarterback. Has anything changed for you heading into this last week of spring?
Yeah, not really. I mean, looking at it, I think the completion percentage is pretty close right now with those guys. We've been playing a little bit more zone coverage, so the completion percentage is kind of on par with what Dwayne was last spring. So we want to keep working on that towards the last week here. I think we should be a little higher than we were last spring just because of the style of defense we're going against. But today was an opportunity to kind of move the ball up and down the field a little bit more and play more situational stuff. So I thought the guys competed really well, and they both did a good job.
This might be hard to answer, I don't know, your sense of the direction of the passing attack at this spring compared to last spring? You had those veteran receivers, you had Dwayne, but you also were looking at different quarterbacks then too. Where are you now compared to a year ago?
We threw everything in this spring, so we really have almost a year's worth of stuff in, and we added a lot during last year. So it's been a lot for those guys to take on, and they've done a good job. But they're not there yet. We got to go back and repaint the bridge again. 4 or 5 more times this May, and go through it again this summer once we get into preseason. And those guys will have opportunity to go throw with each other this summer and work on the stuff. But still got a lot of work to do there. But they've done a nice job of putting it on the field in a short period of time.
Second row left, Ari. You guys have some pieces coming in the offensive line in the fall, but it looks like with Josh coming back, you might be starting to get a feel for that. How's the piecing together of the offensive line going? Are you getting a rhythm there in terms of how things are there?
Yeah, 5 guys. When you look at it right now, they're all new because Thera isn't practicing, and then 4 other guys that were there last year that weren't, and then actually today Wyatt was sick, so we didn't have him. So guys are having an opportunity to step up and get a bunch of reps that they hadn't had before. Really impressed with Nick Petit-Frere. I think he's really come along and doing a nice job this spring. But guys are getting in there. I thought Josh is really getting a handle and more comfortable every practice being up front and being in charge of everybody up front, making the calls and the protections. So, I think this is really good for us moving forward. And then we get in the preseason, we'll have really 5 new guys getting in there. Thayer back from his injury, and then 4 other guys in there. So there'll be more depth there, and then they'll keep competing for the starting spots.
I know that you've been asked about Garrett Wilson quite a bit, but obviously first spring, you guys are getting towards the end, close to the spring game. How is this progression? Is he still kind of on the way up here, or are you seeing some pretty big improvement from him? He seems to stand out to me when I'm watching.
Yeah, he does. He's got really good body control, excellent ball skills, does a nice job down the field in terms of timing up and jumping and going to make plays. Still learning how to be, physical in terms of, blocking in the run game and picking up some of those things. Every once in a while he'll still get caught at the line of scrimmage, but every day he's getting better, and the more he plays, the better he's going to get.
Right next door, Bill.
Ryan, you guys have obviously added some under center stuff to the offense this spring. What's your assessment of how that's gone, and how much do you anticipate that sort of being part of your package as you move forward into the fall?
Still evaluating it. It does give us some different things that we didn't have last year. It's twofold. One, it allows us to a lot of times put 2 tight ends in the game, which has been really good for us. That's a strength of our offense right now. It's really the most experienced group on our offense coming back. And it gives us other opportunities too to kind of roll off the ball, some play action things, and get the that speed sweep thing going that a lot of guys do. And so we're looking at a bunch of that stuff, evaluating it, still making decisions moving forward.
And with the offensive line, you mentioned Wyatt was sick, and some other guys have dealt with illness. You have Thayer out, and some guys maybe you want to protect a little bit too. Like how is the thin nature of that position going to impact what you do in the spring game?
Yeah, it's going to be everything because we really have 11 guys total, so that's going to be a huge part of it. And because we're a little thin there, everything starts with the O-line. we want to be at 16 scholarship guys. We're light right there right now, and obviously with Thayer being out, that's a big deal. So it'll be hard. We'll probably go with a running clock in the second half, something we've done in the past before, so that we get some of the guys who are a little more veteran, like Bowen and some of the guys who played some more out of the game, and we can still have a full game, but it'll probably go quickly in the second half.
You want to consider playing like 7-on-7 for a stretch just to get
No, we'll play the game. Yeah.
Front row right, Tim?
Why is it important to play a spring game? Obviously, you saw with TCU had to step away from that. Why is it important to you?
We play guys here early. Guys come and they get on the field early, and so it's one thing to be in the indoor and practice 11, and we're kind of rolling with the practices. But once you get in front of 70, 80, 90,000 people in that game, it matters. Even just punting the ball and seeing if the returners can catch the ball in fair catch in front of that kind of crowd. What kind of reaction are they going to get? It's always good for the young guys to get out there and have the experience of walking through the tunnel, going through pregame, being in the locker room, all the different things that come up with it. So for the older guys, maybe not as important. That's why we'll get them out of the game pretty quickly, but let the younger guys go and feel what it's like playing in the shoe.
And indulge me real quick, Ryan. I know y'all don't like to talk a lot about individuals, but it looks like Josh Proctor is kind of coming along. It looks like Alex Williams kind of flashed today and stuff. Who has caught your eye this spring? Maybe not necessarily he's going to be a starter, but you think is making some big progress
On defense?
Yeah.
Josh does flash. He flashes. He's still got a lot of football to learn. Just learn about day-to-day stuff. But he's maturing. He's getting there. It's a slow process, but very, very talented. There's some times where we'll throw a goal ball and he'll come out of the middle of the field and make a play all the way on the numbers. And so he's got a lot of range and a lot of talent.
And Williams, is he coming along? Kind of a project, I think, coming out of high school a little bit and stuff. But what do you see?
Yeah, all the guys up front are doing a great job. They really are. There's a ton of depth there, and Alex is one of those guys that, they can really go get the passer. And so, you saw today there was, sacks, and those are game changers for us. And Larry's the best in America teaching those guys how to pass rush. I think our inside guys have been doing really well too. So a lot of depth there, and that's a strength on defense.
Middle right, Bill?
Yeah, Austin Mack obviously was an important player last year before he got hurt. What have you seen from him this spring in terms of his recovery and how important he is?
Yeah, kind of a slow start when he got going here in spring, but then he's kind of come on. I think he's looking to show some leadership, especially in the last 2 or 3 practices I've noticed. He's been out there taking a lot of reps, and sometimes against our defense, you have some of these routes where you have to clear guys out, and you got to be a team player. He's been doing that, working hard. I think his effort's been excellent. Sometimes he'll still feel a little bit with that foot, so we'll get him on volume control. But overall, it's healed pretty well, and he's looking to show leadership.
I think I may have asked you about Brandon Bowen the other day, but he's obviously playing at right guard today. How versatile is he? How important is he to this line in terms of on and off the field?
Yeah, he has to be a leader for us. We talk about that all the time because he's played so much, and some of these other guys haven't. And he's played multiple positions. He's played left tackle, left guard, right guard. And so to be able to plug a guy in like that, we lose Wyatt. We're able to put Bowen in there, and he's able to play. And we're operating today pretty good on offense. Then that's a huge deal for us, and he's unselfish that way, which means a lot.
Third row right, Rob?
Ryan, can you take us back to Florida for just a second, your brief stint there, and Greg Madison, did he make an impression on you then in any way, and in what way?
Yeah, he sure did. I was pretty impressionable at that point. I was probably 23, 24 years old, and that was the year I got married in 2005. I remember it pretty clearly. He's first off, he's a great man, great husband, great dad. Kind of has that feel where mentor feel where you look to him for advice. He's been around a long time. He's seen a lot of football and a lot of wisdom, and I felt like that was important to have. And so he's done that. He's somebody that the guys look to with a lot of respect, where he's been, who he's coached, what he's done. And so when he speaks, people listen. And I think that, for everybody on defense, the staff and for the players, they look to him as kind of a steadying force there, someone they can grab onto. And so when we had an opportunity to get him, that was important for us.
I wanted to ask you about that. Did you go to him with, this is what I want the defense to look like? How much input from him in terms of that give and take before you hired him? There
was a lot of conversation. The conversations were with Larry, The conversations were with Jeff and with Greg. And my vision was that one of those guys all to get together with all their backgrounds and figure it out. What is the best for the guys that we have right now, knowing that we have one of the best defensive line recruited, recruited one of the best defensive lines in America. We want 4 of those guys on the field. We didn't want to go to a 3-down structure that much. And so that was kind of the only thing I had. Other than that, let's go figure this out. How do we stop the run in this conference? And then how do we do a great job with our DBs in terms of, getting our hands on footballs and continuing, to develop some of the best DBs in America. And, Jeff's the best. He does an unbelievable job, and those guys are playing with great confidence right now, and they feel like they're getting better.
Did you know that Greg already had sort of a similar philosophy as you? Was that part of the...
Yeah, because just being around him for that year and seeing the way he worked and, knowing what his philosophy was and, his principles, yeah.
Third row left, Dan. One thing that seems that just about every coach has said on this staff this spring is that nobody has egos here, that you're all working together. How much have you seen that? How important do you think that is, that everybody doesn't have a big ego and that everybody's kind of willing to work off each other?
Yeah, it's huge. That's huge. We had an exercise today to start off the day where we had our guys write down on a piece of paper, what's your purpose? We had the CEO of Amgen come in and speak to our team the other day, and he talked about what the purpose of their organization was. So I challenged, our players to do that, and I'm going to challenge the coaches as well. Like, what is your purpose? And so many of them put their teammates, their family, wanting to be great. And so when you're unselfish and you're willing to sacrifice yourself for the others, that's when you have something special. And one of my other, visions was just the energy every day walking into this building. And I was proud to say today, I thought that was one of the most energetic practices we've had. Guys are running around, having fun, competing against each other, and that's what we want. And a lot of that has to do with the assistant coaches. And like you said, being unselfish and motivating their units from within. I mean, that's kind of the key.
When you have so many coaches who have been in leadership positions, obviously the majority of the staff has been a coordinator at some point. Is that easier said than done for guys to kind of settle into roles and to not want to compete, to kind of be the leaders of their units?
No, I don't. I think it's the other way. I think that when you're in a leadership role, you understand what it takes. You understand what it takes to be a good coordinator, a good position coach, and you respect it more. Because I think when you are a coordinator and you're working with other guys, you recognize things that, hey, if I'm an assistant coach again, this is what I'll do to help out. And I think it makes your team stronger.
Front row left, Dave.
Ryan, when we've gotten a chance to see practices this spring, and by the way, thank you for opening up so many practices. It's been nice. Garen Prater seems to be a guy that's really making a lot of plays. I know he's a walk-on sophomore, but is he a guy that's legitimately in the mix for you guys at the wide receiver position?
Hey, you never know how things happen. He's showing up every day. He's making plays. C.J. Saunders is a guy who walked on here, and he earned a scholarship. So you just keep stacking days up like that and making plays. Before you know it, he could be on the field, yeah.
Middle linebacker, looks like Baron Browning right now is running with the ones. I know Tuff was out today, and Taraja was with the twos. How do you see that shaking out? Do you think that's going to be a competition going into fall camp? Do you think there might be some rotation there at middle linebacker? Just kind of what do you envision there?
Yeah, I think it's going to keep rolling because, Tuff's been out with his knee. Barron's had his hamstring. Taraja's been there every day, and he's doing a good job on special teams. So I think it's going to keep going into the preseason. We'll get everybody healthy and let those guys play. We are going to play a lot of depth, too. That's something that we believe in. It's something that, whether it's on offense or defense, the more depth you have, the better, and let those guys play. But I don't think any of those decisions will be made until the preseason.
And final questions, front row left. Doug?
Sort of along those lines, Ryan, do you have, philosophically, on the defensive side of the ball, do you have anything in terms of, I want to play 8 defensive linemen, I want to rotate 6 linebackers, I want to rotate 3 corners, or, you know what, I want the best guys to play, or how much do you want situational substitutions? Do you want defensive guys running in and out of the game all the time? It seems like you guys do have some interesting depth, potentially, at a lot of places. How would you like to use it ideally? Yeah,
in a perfect world, you have, 2 deep and a spare. We say 2 and a spare, a pair and a spare. And ideally, that's what you do. Now, who's really game ready? That's what it will come down to in the preseason. We'll make a list of guys that we think are game ready to go put in the game. And if they're game ready, then we play. It was the same philosophy on offense last year when, you say, well, don't take Paris out of the game. Well, we had KJ. Don't take Terry out of the game. We had Johnny. And so those guys kept rolling over and over again. Well, it's the same thing with our D-line. When they start coming out in waves like that, by the time you get to the fourth quarter and you got guys who are fresh coming at you, that makes a difference. Same thing in the secondary. When those corners can get, can be fresh in the fourth quarter as opposed to playing the whole game and breaking down, it matters. It also matters later in the season. And, we actually have 2 bye weeks this season. So really, projecting that, how can we, sustain these guys throughout the season? It's depth. That's what it comes down to. That being said, our great players have to play great. Talk to our team about that all the time. Whether it's football, basketball, any sport, in order to go win championships, your great players and your veteran players have to play that way. And so that's a challenge. But we'll make that list in the preseason, figure out who's game ready, and then go from there.
And you had a little scuffle today. Looked like maybe Jalen took a punch and then wasn't out there for the rest of practice. I know that stuff kind of happens, but when you see that, what do you think as a head coach?
I like the fact that they're going after it. I think that if you don't have any kind of scuffles, then maybe you don't have the right team. If you have too many, then it starts to get reckless. I think if you have 1 or 2 every now and again, I think it's good. You never want it to get too over the top. But when you're competing, football is a violent game, and so emotions get high. But as we start getting closer to preseason, we have to play with emotion. We can't let emotion play with us. Otherwise, it's going to cost us 15 in a game. So while we're trying to create energy and create that environment, I think it's a good thing. If it starts to get over the top and get reckless, then we'll put a stop to it. But as we get closer to the preseason, that stuff will start to calm down a little bit.
And we do have one final question. Bill?
Chris Olave looked like he hurt his hamstrings. Do you have any kind of update on his status?
Yeah, no, just some tightness in that hamstring, and we have a few guys kind of nursing that. It's later on in spring. That's something that's natural, but nothing long term.
Great. Coach, thank you
All
very
right,
much.
thanks, guys.